So today I'm going to show you how I make a bow drill fire. I got my folding saw, I got my Tops BOB knife, and about a 4-foot length of paracord. So here you can see I'm unfolding my saw. I have no idea who makes this saw, but it's super light, unfolds easily, and is real secure. I just love this saw. I've had it for about 20 years. So the first part I'm going to make is the bow. Looking for something green, about a thumb in width, and with a branch on the end of it. So I found this piece. I'll cut this guy down, and I'm going to cut it to length. It's going to be about from the inside of my armpit to the tips of my fingers, where I want it. So now I've got it cut down. I'll take my knife and strip off the little twigs, and then I'll cut it to length. For length, again, I want it about from my armpit to the tips of my fingers, and I want to leave at least one branch on the end. So here I'm marking it with my knife, and then I'll cut it to length with the saw. And you can see on the end I got 2 branches there. I did leave the 2 branches on, but you only need one, and I'll know for future I'm only going to leave one on there because the other side digs into the ground a little bit. So here's my bow all ready to put a string on. Now I'm looking for some wood for the rest of the parts. I want something dead, something dry, something standing, not laying on the ground. So I'm going to strip off this bark, and I'll take my thumb and I'll make some marks in here. I want something that's soft enough that it'll make visible marks with my thumb. So, and you can see now here, you can easily see the marks that I'm making with my thumb. So this will provide good material for the hearth, spindle, and bearing block. I don't need a huge amount of this stuff, so I'm just going to take my saw and cut off a small piece that I can split up easily. So here's the piece I cut off. It's about 3 foot in length, but I'm only going to use about a foot of it. Also going to need a baton for splitting, so I found this real sturdy piece. It's kind of green, heavy, and I'll cut off a short length of this that I can use kind of like a hammer for splitting the wood. So I got my baton on top, I got the raw material for the rest of my parts next, then I got the bow you can see, and then the last piece is left over from the bow. It's a nice straight piece, so I figured I might as well hang on to it. Here I'm going to shorten up those branches on what I call the front end of my bow. You really only need one of those branches though, just to hold the knot in place and keep it from sliding down the bow. On the other end of the bow, you need to cut a slot for the cordage. I usually just take my saw, and it's kind of tricky here. You got to be careful so you don't slip, but cut a slot in there about as thick as my saw blade, which is about 1 inch. This is about 3 or 4 feet of 550 cord. I'll tie a figure-8 knot in one end and slip it over the front end of my bow. On the back end of the bow, I'll slide it into the slot that I cut. And then for slack, what I want is I usually like to pinch about 1/2 of an inch. If I pinch it tight, I have about 1/2 inch of loop there. That's about right. And then once I get my slack right, I will wrap on the back end of the bow. I'll wrap it around a few times just to hold it tight. And then I will take and form a little loop, and I'll take the tail of the cordage, and I like to slide it under the main part of the bow string and put it through the loop and tighten it. And then I'll take the tail of that, put it down through the notch again, and then the leftover I'll just wrap around and stick it through the notch again just to keep it from being all loose. With the bow done, I'll take my raw material and I'll cut off about a foot of this stuff, and I'll make the rest of the parts that I need for the bow drill. I'll take my knife and my baton and I'll split this up and make the spindle, hearth, and bearing block. So now I'll take half of this and split this down, and this will be the spindle. I'll carve this down and then I'll measure it out to about that length, and then I'll cut it off to the final length. Once it's cut, I will use my awesome camera skills here and carve it into kind of a rounded end on one end and a pointy end on the other side, like this. For my bearing block, I like a nice comfortable half circle shape, so I cut off about 6 inches of it, and then I'll drill a hole in the bottom of it for the top of my spindle, and it'll be ready to go. Here I'm taking my knife and making a nice starting hole in the hearthboard, or the fireboard some people call it. It's about 3/8 thick or 1/2 inch thick, and I just want to make a starting hole for my spindle. So now it's time to burn everything in. I'll put my foot about an inch away from the hole and move my shoelaces over, and I'll put all the parts together, and I just want to get some smoke going and then go a little bit faster past that, and that's it. Just want to get it burnt in so it's nice and charred but not glossy. Now I'm going to cut my notch, so I'll take my knife and I'll mark where I'm going to cut, and then I'll use a rocking motion with my knife, and I'll cut out that notch. You should probably do this on another piece of wood or something, so you're not pushing your hearthboard into the dirt like this and getting any moisture up onto it. But again, this was just a kind of a test here. After I get my notch rough cut, I'll kind of carve out the edges, make it a little bit smoother, so the dust doesn't kind of catch in those little grooves. I want it nice and smooth. Once it's pretty much done, then I'll also carve the bottoms of it to make kind of a pyramid shape. I don't want like a wedge or a V shape of the dust. I like a pyramid or a cone shape to produce more dust down at the bottom to make a bigger ember. And then you'll also see after this is done, there's a little bit of scraggly stuff down there that I'll clean up. But once that's done, you're ready to go. So then you want to put something underneath the hearthboard to catch the ember. Something as simple as a leaf will do, but I like to use a little slice of a wood chip. Then you're ready to put your spindle on the bow, put your bearing block on, and start drilling. Some things to remember is that you got your spindle on the outside of the string, not on the inside of the string, and that you got your left arm wrapped around your knee so that the bearing block is real stable against your front of your leg. When you start seeing smoke, give it a little more speed, a little more pressure, and make sure you're going the full length of the bow, and then you'll see the smoke will be coming from the dust, not the hole or the spindle, but right from the dust. Give it a little wave with your hand, and then tap on the hearthboard to make sure that it's all the dust is down, and then lift the hearthboard off, and you'll get a little more oxygen to your dust pile. The hardest part for me is knowing when to stop, but when you pull that hearthboard off and you see it smoking like that, you know your little pile of dust has created an ember. And if you give it a few gentle blows, you see that your little dust pile that's smoking is turned into a nice strong ember. And this ember will last 5 to 10 minutes. Now for this video, I was planning on just getting an ember. I didn't have a tinder pile set up, but I decided to set this down and actually make a little tinder pile since I had a good piece of cedar right next to me. So I quick grabbed some cedar and made a small tinder pile and put my ember in it and started to blow into it. You really should have your tinder pile set up, your fire prep all set up and everything before you even start this whole process, but I just wanted to do this for the video, quick video. Once you got your ember in your tinder pile and you give it a few gentle blows, it'll start smoking more and more, and pretty soon you'll have a nice little flame. And that's how I make a bow drill fire. Any questions or comments, please post them below. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.